this first, but there's some differing information out there today about the cash considerations involved in this deal. Is there anything you can address on that? Are you paying both the remainder salaries for Gallo and Rodriguez?
Yeah, let me actually start.
I'm sorry. I meant for he
No, it's
wanted
all
to
right.
say some few things. I'm
Well,
sorry.
And I think the cash.
Go ahead.
I apologize.
Let him
No,
start, and then we'll go for questions. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the cash is like a footnote to this thing. Let me just say first on. I just want to, from the organization standpoint, thank and appreciate Joey and his growth through the organization. Really a tremendous, excuse me, a tremendous success story for him, for our scouts, our coaches, everybody who's touched him along the way, and for a homegrown player to have reached the level that he is, an all-star player, Gold Glove caliber, or not Gold Glove caliber, Gold Glove winner, Silver Slugger caliber. Really a true top-end talent. And a great person in the community. I just want to thank Joe. Wish him all the best. It was a emotional, yesterday in particular, talking to him. But even just the week or so leading up to it, as we were pretty honest with him and kind of let him know where things stood. So certainly wish him the best there. And obviously if we're in a different competitive spot, if we weren't in a rebuilding situation, which we are and have acknowledged and talked about, this could look a little different, and there could be a path there where, like we did with several other players in our past, you play it out, and you aren't concerned with the end of their contractual situation necessarily because you're playing out the value on the field to help you win. That's not where we are right now. We felt that there were pretty clearly two paths we could go down. One was to extend Joey. The other was to trade him. I'm not going to get into specifics. We did have some discussions there with an extension in mind. It was clear that wasn't going to lead to a deal at this point in time, and so it was very clear to us that trade became the best alternative at that point. And the half measures and kind of holding and waiting, that's not where we need to go. We need to take some significant steps forward. We have really two real assets, I guess I would say, and in terms of putting a championship club back on the field that our fans deserve and the market deserves and ownership deserves. One is building an elite farm system, which we've made a lot of strides in that, and we're really proud of the group we have coming up. This trade obviously addresses that, and the other is the fact we don't have much in the way of future financial obligations, and ownership and budget permitting, we will be able to play in free agent market in a different way than we have the last couple of years. So we have worked to preserve both those things, to build both of those two options. It comes at the expense of trading a fan favorite and a very good player, but we felt that without an extension, which was not realistic at this point, that was our best option. We're really excited to get the four players that we did. We think we have acquired three players that are everyday bats in the big leagues. A couple that have a chance to play in the middle of the diamond and in premium positions, and a young pitcher that on the verge of the big leagues that we think can be a starter for us as we go forward. So overall, it's a really good value. Four players that we're excited about. It made sense to us, and we believe it'll make sense to our fans in time. But with that, I'm happy to take your guys' questions.
Okay, sorry about that. So we'll start with Evan again.
Okay, so, and I did have other questions regarding the trade, but is there anything you can address on clearing up that financial question?
Yeah, we included cash to help offset their salaries.
So not the complete salary, but just offset it.
The bulk of it, yes.
Okay. You addressed a great deal of this, but I still, I'm going to oversimplify, right? Did you just trade? You have sought for a long time to develop a franchise cornerstone player. Did you just trade a franchise cornerstone player in your mind, or is that, do you hate that label?
We traded a very good baseball player, a really good person, a very good baseball player, and as I said to Woody and some of the coaches last night, I look forward to the point in time where we're coming downstairs and telling them that we added, we added the guy that was an all-star a couple weeks ago versus being on this side of the deal. But that's coming. But I think when you talk about rebuilding, that there can't be any half measures, right? I think that if you're going to embrace that, you have to be realistic about what the options are, and that's why it was very clear to us it was an extension or a trade, and both were strong considerations. Both got a lot of time internally. When we had a chance to get 4 players of this caliber, again with 3 we think could be everyday bats in the big leagues and a potential starting pitcher, and the extension wasn't in our minds likely at this point in time. We didn't want to pass that up.
You kind of addressed this with where we are and no half measures, but I think the general fan is looks at the situation and says, what's wrong with this picture? This club drafted and developed a legitimate player, and that's something that the club has struggled to do, and now it's had to trade it away. What does that just speak to where this organization is now?
I think it's pretty clear, man. I mean, honestly, it's I just kind of touched on it. I don't want to trade. We don't want to trade the star caliber major league players, but again, like if we would run out the clock, where we're at in the standings right now, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, and that's what our fans would rightfully be upset about. I live with several Ranger fans. I am a Ranger fan. I get it. Talking to my kids, their friends, like I appreciate it. Like Joey's, he's a hell of a player, and but when we are rebuilding, I mean, we're in last place, and we have a lot of work to do. If a player is based on their contractual status is not going to be here, when we really believe we're going to do something special, our options are either to consider a trade or to run out the clock. And running out the clock doesn't make a lot of sense, and when you look at it in the big scheme of things.
Hey, and just the last thing. Well, I'll tell you what. Let me go back to the end of the line. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mm-hmm.
Chris.
AJ, this is, you guys have been very open that this is an evaluation year. Has what's happened with the rest of the team, whether it be underperformance of certain players or maybe you guys haven't seen exactly what you needed to see, did that kind of help kickstart the decision to want to go ahead and cash in on where Gallo's value is now?
It plays a role, but I still think we would have been at the same point. I mean, obviously with where we are, and probably leave some of the bigger picture stuff to after the deadline, but it plays a role, for sure, in that. Well, let me step back. I think even if we were, a little bit better than we are right now, but we weren't, contending, we still would have been in a similar spot, So that's kind of the best way I could put it is, we felt our options were, again, either to, with 3 options, or to run out the clock, which I don't think makes a whole lot of sense. That makes sense if you're in contention, if you're winning, and you play out the value on the field and you go all in to win. We've done that in the past. You have the option to extend the player's contract, or you have the option to trade. I mean, it's from a business standpoint, it really does kind of boil down to that. I know that our fans don't want to hear about that. They want us to win. We do too. And we felt, given all the circumstances, this option provided the clearest path forward to helping that transpire on the field.
Okay, thanks, John.
Mm-hmm.
Go to Kennedy.
Hey, JD. I'm curious, how did the Yankees kind of emerge as the right team to make this trade with?
Yeah, I think a few factors. One, they have good players. They have a good system, so they were in a good position from that standpoint. Two, I think they have a ownership and management team that were wanted to be aggressive and wanted to win. And obviously where they're at in the standings, given the tight race there in the American League East, they had the motivation to do it. So I think with those three factors probably played the biggest role. Our scouts, our evaluators, really like a lot of their players, and I think because we had talked with them in the past about in different situations, last deadline this winter, about a variety of things. We had done a lot of work on their group and ultimately felt really comfortable, and that's kind of how we got there.
And just to touch on the prospects a little bit while
Sure.
I know you mentioned 3 impact bats and a really solid pitcher. Is there any one particular that maybe just stands out to you that can really be an impact big leaguer for you guys?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a unique deal in that we really have all 4 guys rated, pretty well. This wasn't a deal where, sometimes it might be a kind of like when we traded Justin Smoke. He was clearly the guy, and there were some additional players kind of on the back end of the deal for Seattle. Like, this is a different deal. We really, like, all 4 guys were key to it. Duran's a guy that's probably kind of jumped board the most in the last year or so. He's really gotten better. He's only 21 years old, two-way player, like high energy, great makeup, can really hit, plays with a ton of passion. Smith and Hoover and Otto, kind of high picks from very good programs. Smith, a guy at LSU that we really think has shown the ability to stay at shortstop. I think that was probably some of the question with him coming out of school in the draft, was like, is he going to move off short? He's not huge in stature, but he hits the ball really hard, and his tools are loud on the field. And Hoover is a really advanced bat, ultimate defensive position. We'll see. He's kind of moved around. He has played both infield and outfield in the past, but can really hit, and a really good approach. And Otto he's got one of the best command control in the minor leagues. You look at his performance, really good curveball, and he's really made some strides with his delivery, and we think he's got a good chance to start. So I really like all 4 guys. It wasn't a situation where they were any throw-ins or anything like that. These guys were all critical of the deal.
David.
John, you talked about a couple times, you mentioned not running out the clock on guys, and you talked about guys that might not be here when it's time, when you feel like you guys can really move forward and start winning. 27 hours to go or so before the trade deadline, you've got a couple other players that probably fit in that. So where do you see yourself going in the next 27 hours with a couple of pitchers? Yeah,
we're still having conversations, Stephen. We are, to your point, we've other teams know we're very open. We're willing to make trades that are going to help us in the long term. The value's got to be there. We're not looking to give anybody away by any stretch, but if there's a good value deal, we're exploring it.
And as far as once, like you said, it's acknowledged it's a rebuilding time. What do you need to see this team do between now and the end of this season? I mean, clearly we know standings are not gonna matter and all that, but what do you need to see between now and the end of the season?
Yeah, well, let's address some of that stuff after the deadline at this point. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff,
You mentioned that there's a potential for cash on hand, money to spend in free agency. Is that something you would do this offseason, or is that a couple off seasons away?
I think both are in play. We don't yet have. I don't yet have a formal budget for next year, so a little early there. But we expect to be players in free agency as soon as this off season if it's the right fit.
So then why not pursue a Gallo extension beyond the trade deadline? Were you guys like resolutely told he's going to go to free agency, or was that just the overwhelming sense? I mean, you would have for 2 years basically exclusive negotiating rights with a guy who could be an impact free agent.
Yeah, so I don't want to characterize or get into the details of our talks with Joey or with his representative, but I pretty strongly believe that trade value would go down after tomorrow, and so it really felt like this window in the cycle, so to speak, it was our best opportunity from a trade standpoint, and so we didn't want to miss that without knowing that we had real headway to reach an agreement. So when we felt confident or felt that it was very unlikely, certainly what wasn't going to happen right now. We were not in kind of the same range. We move forward.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
okay, we'll take these last four, so no more if you don't have your hands up. So we'll go to Levi.
I'm not asking for specifics unless you just want to volunteer them, but it's more of a ballpark question. How many teams were in touch with you guys this year about Gallo?
A number. Yeah, a number. I'd rather not say.
Okay. Question on Otto. Looking at the rotation and kind of you guys needing some innings this year. Is he somebody that you guys are looking at as a potential for making some or pitching some big league innings this year?
Yeah, I mean, we want to get him in and kind of get him acclimated here first. He's going to go to Round Rock and jump into that rotation, but we did make the trade with that in mind, that he was a real option to get a look here down the stretch. 25 years old. He's like I said, he's already at AAA. Eligible to be added to the roster this winter. We're eligible for the Rule 5, I should say, and we'll certainly add him. So yeah, he's a real consideration for them.
And you lead me right into my next question. I think he's not the only one of these guys that's Rule 5 eligible this year. Is that correct? And if so, you guys have some decisions to make there.
He and Duran are both eligible.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. That's it for me. Thank you.
Jared.
JD, I'm curious. I know that you guys as an organization have done a lot in terms of figuring out best practices for developing guys, both on the pitching and position player side, and I think you've obviously been some changes there. How confident and how excited, I guess, are you with some of the changes from the position player side to bring these three guys into the organization and get your hands on them and get a chance to develop them with the things that the organization has been doing over the last few years?
I think it's a really good question. I'm trying to think best way to address it. It's like a long conversation, but first of all, let me say I don't think we're not going to necessarily look to change a whole lot with these guys. I mean, these guys they have really good approaches, really good swings. They hit the ball hard. They use the whole field. They get on base. They do a lot of things that you want to see. So we're going to, as they come in, we're going to get our arms around them and get to understand them, and we're not necessarily looking to change much about what they do. We do want to put them in a really good environment, provide them with a lot of resources, find out what they've had access to, what they have, and the Yankees do a good job on the development side. So this isn't necessarily a situation where we see an opportunity to, we feel like we're acquiring some players that are already on a very good path, but we certainly can enhance it. When you look at the strides Dustin Harris has taken this year as one example, like we certainly feel as good about our development system and the people and the programs we have in place as we have in a long time. And I think you've seen that the steps forward that AJ Alexi has taken on the pitching side. I mentioned Harris and others. So, putting those guys in that environment, giving them access to these resources, finding out what they feel they need. That's going to be kind of one of the fun parts about the next couple months for us.
I know that numbers in the minors are just that, but it seems like all three of these position players have pretty high on base percentages. And I don't know, how that all translates as they climb levels, but I guess is that particular statistic a fair representation of maybe where they are from like a foundational hitting standpoint with their approach and command of the strike zone and stuff like that?
It is. I mean, I think they get there in different ways. Meaning I think Haaver's got a really advanced approach and very patient, shrinks the strike zone, has always had a good swing. Duran's a little bit more aggressive, but what they all three have in common is they hit the ball hard and they don't swing and miss a whole lot, which is pretty good foundation to have for hitting. So, but yeah, having these guys with what we feel are the types of approaches and swings that will work in the big leagues as we develop them over the next period of time is exciting. You watch big league games and the lineup, the Astros lineup, when they just don't budge and anything in the zone they get a good swing off and hit balls hard. Like that is from a lineup standpoint, certainly a model of what we're trying to accomplish.
Okay, last two. Evan?
So you mentioned, there are a couple things that you mentioned. One being that you want to keep your the financials kind of as flexible and as open as possible for free agency going down the road. Does that play an impact in? Were you not going to take on any other elements of contracts in any talks with any clubs?
No, separate topic. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, we have a budget. Our payroll number, or I should say, whether we sign a player or we extend a player or we take on a player in a trade, it all comes out of the same place, right? So certainly that they're all interconnected and we make those decisions. But we did have, and we continue to have conversations here, where we could take on a contract from another team. So, but we're going to be, we're going to treat that very similar as we treat like young talent. It's a we've unfortunately the last couple of years like the losing on the field, what our fans have gone through, what we've gone through, that part's not fun. That part of the rebuild's not fun, right? The coming out the other side is having a lot of really good young players and having this financial wherewithal to make these decisions. So we're going to treat that with care on both sides and be judicious about how we allocate those dollars.
The other thing is, all these guys are, I think in Baseball America's group, 2 of those go into your top 10, and they were in the top 10 in the Yankees midseason Baseball America rankings. But what we've seen is it's really hard to access, right? Like top 50 prospects or top 10 prospects in organizations. Did you feel like kind of the strategy here was you could most max out talent by trying to get guys who were just about to pop into top 10 and kind of before they became into that untouchable group, if I'm making any sense?
Yeah, so I mean it's funny if you look at like a preseason top 100 list right now, or even top 25 list, there might be 5 or 10 players on that list that you don't value all that much as an organization, right? So It's definitely. I think that's they're reasonable proxies for kind of industry value, but they're not. They're far from. These guys do great work, but they're far from perfect. And a top 30 prospect that we have kind of a real concerns on or an arrow down on is not as valuable as somebody that's totally off the radar that we really believe in. So. Your point is fair, and the truly elite prospects in the game are they're hard to access. Certainly, we've had conversation along those lines, but I think when you talk about a guy like Duran a year ago was valued at a very different level than he is today, and I think even he's going to be valued at a different level a year from now than he is right now. So. But yeah, that's again what our scouts, our analysts, our evaluators in general are kind of charged to do. That they're sometimes you go out and you get a guy at his peak value because it makes the most sense, and most of the time you want to find the players before they're recognized that way.
I know in the past you have hated the word rebuild, but I think we've beaten you down with rebuild so much that you've actually used it today a few times.
I think we said it this off season, and then we embraced it, listen, when nobody wants you kind of to be in the middle, and I think we were pretty clear this winter that this was a rebuilding year for us. And unfortunately, that what that means is it comes with losses at the big league level, and it comes with decisions like we made yesterday. So ultimately, I'm very confident we'll look back at this moment in time as when we're celebrating a division or a World Series that this helped get us there. But moment in time, it's part of a rebuild, and that is just by definition, not a short-term positive thing for our fans.
And that was what I was going to ask. Is a lot of these guys are going to be really ascendant on top 10 lists, and your farm system is much deeper today. But they're also most of these guys are coming from Class A. Should it be viewed that the rebuild process is extended a little bit more? Is that a fair assessment at this point?
I don't want to put any timelines on it. I didn't want to put any timelines on it this winter, or this past winter. But we feel like this accelerated things for us, not the other way around.
Last question, Chris.
This is obviously the first time, in a while that you have somebody alongside you in Chris Young, helping you make these decisions. And this is a big trade for you guys, obviously, to part with, such a popular player. What has been, how's the balance been between you and him, and how you guys have handled this entire process?
Well, we've always had a really, strong team around. It's the first time somebody's had, certainly that title. I've handled a lot of the club conversations. CY's handled some of them. Shiraz has handled some. Josh has handled some. Ross has handled some. That's kind of the nature of how we've attacked things. But we make decisions as a group. But CY's involved in everything we do. Heavily involved in everything we do.